Bonjour, messieurs, dames. Good afternoon. I'm Laureen Garrod. I'm the director of the TV division at Reed Meadham. And on behalf of Reed Meadham, I'd like to welcome you today to the second MIPFormats. Thank you so much for joining us. Since last year, the formats industry and the business is still strong and growing, and we'll find out more about that in a minute in today's first session. But just a few words before we begin on the overall program. We listened to your feedback after last year's conference, and so we've expanded the program to include more in-depth analysis and a greater variety of topics and types of sessions. We have targeted screenings, new formats for games and factual entertainment, and a focus on new formats from Scandinavia. And of course, the Fresh Talent Pitch is back with 6 finalists who will be presenting their concepts for unscripted formats later today. And we have even more key industry figures than before, and we're particularly pleased and very, very honored to have with us today Dick de Rijk, king of formats, creator of Deal or No Deal, and the new You Deserve It. And you'll be the first audience in the world to see that today, so it's at 6:30 p.m. We're also introducing the MIPFormats Lounge, and that's upstairs as the escalators going up. There will be networking there, matchmaking events, and our workshops. And before I start, I'd like to thank C21 Media, our partner, with whom it's been such a pleasure working with these last many months, and our partners, Entertainment Masterclass, Frappa, and The Wit. And a special thanks to 71 International, who's the sponsor of our networking lunch tomorrow, and will be presenting their new formats. It'll be at the Majestic, and you're all invited to attend. I'll now hand you over to David Jenkinson, Editor-in-Chief and Managing Director of C21 Media, who will open today with the results of the C21 Media Annual Formats Lab Report, which was created exclusively for MIPFormats. You should have that in your bags, MIPFormats bags. If you don't, please get that at the entrance. It's a really important document. So now, a big welcome to David Jenkinson and a real great MIPFormats. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Laureen. Hello, everybody. Welcome on a nice sunny day to MIPFormats. It's a pleasure to be working with Reed for the second outing of this event. We've got a fantastic day and a half for you. Today, there's lots of different sessions going on. We're going to kick off with this introductory piece. We've produced a report over the last 3 months into the trends that we think might be affecting the business, and we're going to initially present those trends and then talk about them with a panel of experts. The day finishes at 6:30 with Dick de Rijk and a networking cocktail, so do stick around for that. Now, increasingly, formats are about social interactivity, so I think it's a good idea to start as we mean to go on. Could you all stand up, please? Everyone stand up. Could you turn to the person to your left and to your right, introduce yourselves, say hello, tell them who you are. Now, doesn't that feel good? You all sit down. Thank you very much. I think that's what social interactivity is about, getting to know each other. And I think as we go through the next day and a half, we're really going to find that that's what drives a lot of development in the business now. That's what people are really looking to build. Let's kick off with the first session then. Before I get into the report, I'd like to invite Karoline, Nicola, and Jan onto the stage, and they're going to join us before we kick off the presentation. So please welcome the speakers. Now, the way this is going to work is I'm going to show a few slides. It's going to last about 10 minutes, and then we're going to discuss the trends and the findings of these slides. So, do I press this to get to the presentation? Let's see if that works. Voila, I'm going back. So, here we go.
Formats are a great currency for the world because it's the first time where you can create an idea or concept, and you have a chance to monetize it, but also personalize it. So you can make jokes, you can make references, you can create personalities for the country that you're going to, but you still have the same structure and the same drive or enthusiasm or drama that whatever that show has, that you'll be able to say, well, here's a formula that works, but now let's make it customized to you. And I think that's always going to be a good business, but like anything, the challenge is what is going to be that great format that's going to pop through.
The other thing that I've found towards the end of last year, when I was traveling through Asia, China, and I went to Singapore as well, was that there's a new, and in some cases renewed, interest in formats, and people viewing them not so much as, you know, intellectual property, but as good business plans.
For the most part, companies operate within their local markets with their local challenges. Often their approach to creativity is driven by the attitude of their local broadcasters, for example. So I think that my job is to try and break some of those constraints, give people the freedom to design interesting new things, and then we have the platform at that point in which to exploit them.
What is the unique selling proposition of television? And when you think about it, it is we are able to show you what is happening now. And that drives you into real things, real people, real events, broadly defined reality.
Great rulers that you can put over a format, one of the great templates that you can attach to see if the format works is, can I explain it in 30 seconds? Now, I'm not talking about explain every part of it, but can I make a 30-second promo that will make someone at home go, oh, I'd like to watch that. And so I like formats that make sense, and you go, well, yeah, okay, tell me more.
So that's what we're going to try and find out over the next day and a half, is a little bit more about what makes formats so compelling and why they're driving the business in such a significant way. So in the first 3 months of 2011, we conducted a survey into the formats industry. We did an online survey, and we also spoke to, I think, 91 channels, not just about their format strategy, but about their whole broadcast strategy. The online survey, which you have a copy of, by the way, in your bags, there's a thing called the Formats Report. If you haven't got it, a lot of the information from this first session is in this report, and there's a lot more online. The survey was very well participated in. 234 is a pretty good number, and that was the profile of the respondents. These are the questions that we asked. I think the most significant ones are what happens next. I think we know what's happened over the past years, but it's good to get a benchmark. Formats have been used by the television business in times of crisis to provide sort of proven formulas that they can roll out across the world, and that seems to be continuing. These are the responses to the questions. Now, whether these are right or wrong or different versions of the truth, we have a starting point for the discussion. So I've asked the panelists to take a look at this report, which they've all done. They've all done the homework, haven't you? Good.
Sure thing.
And we're going to say yes or no to some of these predictions. So the genres that are on the rise in the coming year, and this is in order of importance from the survey. Is that going less popular? Sorry, less popular in the current year. Elimination, constructed reality, cooking and food, which has really been very strong over the last year or two. Talent shows, dancing, all the stuff that's on television at the moment seems to be predicted as in decline. So I'm sure there'll be some controversy about some of that stuff. I mean, particularly cooking and food seems to be enjoying a lot of longevity. The genres that people think will be more popular in the coming year, constructed observational documentary is very much at the top of the list. This was by far and away the genre that people felt was the most compelling and where they were putting their money. Social network-related formats as well. This has been at the heart of everything that has been discussed over the past few months. People really seem to be putting this right up front, and I think obviously we all know why and what's happening in those genres. But again, you see things still creeping into both top tens there. Reality still riding high, but perhaps without the edge, the voting out edge that we've seen in recent years. So, this is really about the cost and the price paid for formats. We asked in 2010, were license fees higher, lower, or the same as in 2009? So this is the previous year. 71% said that they were higher or the same. Then we asked, do you expect format license fees in 2011 to be higher, lower, or the same as in 2010? So that's deals that are being done right now. 90% said they expected them to be the same or higher. So it looks like the genre is in rude health. Again, similar question. Did you buy or sell fewer or more formats in 2010 than 2009? 72% said they bought or sold more. I'm probably not telling most of you what you don't know already, but it's good to just see it down on paper. And do you expect to buy or sell fewer or more formats this year? And again, 91% said they expected to buy the same or more. Which countries are hot for producing and acquiring? Again, most answered UK, Holland, USA, Norway, Sweden, Finland. We're seeing a resurgence in the Nordic territories and Scandinavian territories, and I think the panel reflects that today. But we're seeing new contenders on the list as well. Brazil, that's becoming a developing market to take note of. Which formats not of your own has been the most groundbreaking in the past 12 months? And these were charted on most responded answer. So £1 Million Drop is right up there at number one. One Born Every Minute, Voice of Holland. Voice of Holland got an awful lot of support. And there's a few things on there that have been around a while, but they're still cited as new. Undercover Boss, Big Fat Gypsy Wedding, probably the sort of one of the main reasons that the constructed reality genre is doing so well at the moment. What happens next? This was a question about what people are worried about, and it's often fear and opportunity that drive business in equal portions. So lower fees from broadcasters is a major concern. Intellectual property theft still remains high. Access to new format ideas and consolidation in the production sector. I've sort of taken those two things to mean the same thing. And I think this conclusion at the end of this piece, even though 91% of people surveyed said prices would remain the same or higher, lower license fees remain the top fear on the list. So there's a little bit of confusion there about what people really do think in terms of the confidence over the business. But it seems that supply pipeline really is a big threat, and that is to do with the creation of own ideas and taking key creatives out of the market by the consolidation of bigger groups. We also have a strand on C21 called Schedule Watch, where we talk to broadcasters all the time about their schedules, and we spoke to 91 channels in the first quarter of this year, and we've taken the 24 channels into this report who are most active in the format business. That's a little bit more narrative about what people are really doing with their schedules. And from those interviews, which are reproduced in the report that you have, the following few quotes stood out. For me, the first one was the most significant. Someone said this to me a couple of weeks ago. Channel 4 is done with formats. Have we got anyone from Channel 4 in today? No. I don't really know what Channel 4 means by that. Maybe it means derivative formats. They are still commissioning, but they've really burnt through their existing derivative format slate and are now really looking for obdocs, constructive reality, which was something that was mentioned time and time again. Particularly the US has done very well in developing this genre. The rest of the world's now trying to catch up. Social media is mentioned time and time again. And another interesting point was that several people during the the first quarter said to us that now we've got a bit more money, we're going to spend it on something else. We're going to spend it on scripted material, we're going to spend it on observational documentary. We don't really want to spend as little money as we have done over the past couple of years. And transmedia, it's a bit of a buzzword, it's a little bit overused, but generating formats that work across platform, again, seems to be very significant. So those are just the headlines of what we think we should be talking about. It could be completely different. I'm going to go and find out. So, Nicholas, what in the report made the most sense to you? What, when you read through it, do you think are the biggest factors influencing your role in the formats business right now?
I think there were many things, obviously, that I agreed with, but there's some things our business is changing a lot and very rapidly, and there is a very strong pressure on budgets. And I think that's one of the main concerns we have in the business, that the budgets are shrinking and there's a lot of pressure on them. So that's a challenge for us. And many other things, the consolidation is obviously also affecting us very much. I mean, for us as a Sparks network, we embrace the consolidation because it gives more space for the smaller players, actually, which is interesting. They feel squeezed, but in a way it's the contrary. There's more oxygen actually now, and we have never had such desperate calls from other production companies wanting to buy formats from us, which is kind of interesting because all is locked now. All the formats are locked into big groups, and that's a problem for many of the players in the business.
So you would put consolidation as the number one,
and the pressure on budget, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Are those two things related?
I wouldn't say so, that they're related to each other. I think, the pressure on budget is, the fact that we have more and more channels that are fighting for the same piece of the advertising cake, so there's a smaller piece for everybody.
And are you seeing broadcaster appetite for formats remain strong? Or
absolutely, absolutely. Stronger and stronger, I would say. And of course, why shouldn't you buy? I mean, it's like buying an insurance when you go out traveling. You don't want to be, ill. You don't want to be hurt. You want to be safe, and that's what you buy. When you buy in a format, you buy safety.
Cool.
Yeah.
Caroline, what stood out for you? What do you think are the top three concerns or issues in the formats business right now?
I think what I think is something that we all need to focus on a lot and be aware of is the war of the intellectual property. I think there's a lot of discussion about, what is happening to our creativity, what is threatening our creativity, is consolidation threatening our creativity? I'm sure we'll come back to that discussion. But actually, I think that the war on the intellectual property is a key to us. The broadcasters want to retain more and more rights, all kinds of rights, and it's getting tougher and tougher for the creatives, the producers, the inventors to keep their rights. And that's really a fight that both the small and the big players are having. And to me, maybe that's the biggest threat to creativity right now, because if we cannot canalize the money back to the creative community, I think it's a problem. So that's one thing that I found very relevant in the report. How
do you get around that conversation with the broadcaster when they want to keep the rights to a format? I mean, have you got a sort of a secret weapon that you employ? That's,
if I had, I wouldn't tell.
You wouldn't tell.
No, I mean it's a battle every time. I think sometimes I think that you have a bigger chance of winning the battle if you are part of a big group. I think you have a leverage to bring to the table that it's tough for smaller players to bring to the table. But it's a battle. The other thing, and that's more on the content side of your report, which I found very interesting, is the fact that I think that the definition of formats is changing And I'm not surprised when we have a quote from Channel 4 saying that we don't want more formats. I think that we will see more and more the industry moving away from the very formatized, constructed TV to the much less constructed content that are driven by the strong story or a strong character or a celebrity. I can totally recognize that from our own business also. So that was on the content side standing out for me.
Cool. Well, we'll come back to some of those issues as the conversation progresses. Jan, what are the most difficult challenges, do you think, right now for the formats business, and what did you think the report got right or got wrong?
I think they got the thing right that, both of my colleagues mentioned here, that lower budgets is a threat, overall threat in the global format business. And
how much lower are they this year than last?
I don't know. I don't have a number on that. But I think we should try to keep a positive attitude towards the lower budgets. And being a Nordic player, I would say that we are used to having low budgets. We are known for, in the Nordic region, to produce high-quality productions for fairly low budgets compared to larger regions of the world. So I think that could actually mean opportunities for us distributing Nordic content, that we could get some more Nordic content across. So, so trying to squeeze everything negative in your report into something positive is going to be my focus.
Sounds reasonable.
And then I think we need to divide the world in two. I think the last piece of thing that Karoline said is about the rights, maintaining rights. That's a big issue, always maintaining rights. And for US producers especially, you see that they are struggling every day, and they are screaming desperately out to everyone in Europe, us also, can we make some kind of pact with you in order for us to already have a distribution unit hooked up so that we can retain our rights in the US? And at the same time, European producers are wanting to sell into US. They also want to maintain rights. So,
have you done any deals in that respect, or have you got anything pending that might provide a solution?
No, I don't have a plug-and-play solution. And if I had, I wouldn't tell. Just
so he might have.
I might have. No, I don't. But what we're trying to do, and what is going to be an uphill road, but what we're trying to do nevertheless, is to get everybody to know that we need, all production companies and broadcasters need to become richer. They need to have more money to spend. I've always been fascinated by the UK pact model, which made you the leading export format creators in the world. And that's because you were so clever, so much faster than everybody else, that you made sure that the producers had control over their own IP. And I think the broadcasters on a greater level, both in the Nordic region where we operate and come from, and in the rest of Europe for that sake, needs to realize that they need to give more back to the producers, because it's in their own interest to do so. The richer the producers are, the more and the better pilots they will make, the better content the broadcasters will be pitched, the more successful they will be, the bigger shares they will have, the richer they will be, and the more money they can bring back to the producers. So I think the broadcasters that are just sometimes a bit short-sighted, I think, when they see we need to retain all rights forever and ever, and all ancillary rights and everything, and they never monetize it, and they don't have the incentive to really do anything about it. They just have it.
Because of course in the UK, it's in the UK, of course, it's illegal to package the rights for the aftermarket with the original commission in law, and so those two things can't happen at the same time, which gives the independent sector its value.
Yes.
Caroline, you said you had a point.
No, I was just going back to your question, how to retain as much rights. Of course, it's all about what you can bring to the table. I mean, if you can bring investment, if you can bring funded pilots, if you can bring brands, if you can bring alternative money, then that's where you're fighting the battle. If you can bring something to the broadcaster they can't say no to. And I also think that's another part of the report I find interesting, is the whole talk about social media, the talk about the cross-platform, the fact that now we don't, it's no longer about, you know, you have a format and you make sure it's happening on other platforms. Actually now what we're seeing is that it's happening on other platforms simultaneously as you have your program on air. So it's really happening around us, and I think that we will see that reflected on a content level, but also on an industry level. You know, the consolidation will also be cross-platform now. You know, the consolidation will no longer only be between one television company to another television company. We will see mergers between, and we're already seeing it, between TV production companies and IT companies and brands. And so the whole business model is changing heavily, and that will obviously affect a lot the battle on intellectual property.
I thought it was quite interesting in the opening video when David Lyle said that a format, thinking about a format as a business plan. I thought that was quite a nice sort of way of thinking of it, because if you can bring a global business plan to the table with a brand that wants to contribute in that market, and it's very difficult for them to say no.
And it's happening fast. It's only a couple of years ago that we were all selling options and license deal, and it was pretty straightforward. I mean, goodbye to those days. Make sure you have a strong legal team and that you're hooked up in many other aspects of the industry than just the pure production broadcasting.
Let's talk about options a little bit and the trends in options, because it was a good way to take a good idea either out of the market or to get that good idea for yourself and exploit it. Nicola, what is the current state with the options business, and how has development and rollout of formats changed over the last year or two, do you think?
It's still, I mean, still options is it's a very good way. I mean, you have to give someone the right to sell your format in a certain region at a certain time. So I don't think it's changed that much, that part of the business. Do you think so?
I don't agree. I think that the option is still a valid business, part of our business. Yeah. But I think it's again, it's much, you need to bring more to the table than you sell
yes,
an option.
Of course. I mean, our business is, as you said, changing a lot. I mean, this old model that you get 100% commission by a broadcaster and he gives you 100% of the budget and you just produce for them. That's not longer as valid as before. We need to be in a way to bank our properties and to package them and to do all that development on all those platforms, absolutely. So that's a totally completely, it's more complicated, it's more complex. It takes a lot more energy from us. Before it was so easy. We just went to the broadcaster with an idea and they bought it, boom. Now we have to involve all these parties in the advertise, and they have to have their saying on it, and then we have to, and to our creative people, so it's much more complex business, which it's better for us because we are closer to where the money comes from. And it puts us in a better position when we sell it. So that's the greatest change, I think. So we will be the drivers.
What I'd like to do is just sort of change the focus a little bit now. If people have questions, do think of them, because we're going to have a Q&A session towards the end. But going back to another part of the report, the online survey, people were asked to vote for a format that they thought was groundbreaking, not of their own. Which shows for you in the past year have sort of made a difference, or you thought, I really wish we'd done that, and sort of why? What excites you on the format front at the moment? Yeah.
There's lots of things that excite me. I'm more, probably due to my age, I'm more keen on factual entertainment, and I've always been a big fan of whatever comes out of Studio Lambert for some reason. So all of the Lambert shows I like.
What are the things within that production development that you think are special?
I think it's relevance. I think most. I think that's the key word for the ones that he brings to the market is relevance. It's relevant to us to get to know the subjects that he deals with. So I think he's brilliant in that, and that's a thing that comes out across in your survey is when people say what they like is relevant. You can see what they think the trends will be is relevance, and that's positive thinking again. In a world where you see earthquakes, tsunamis, wars in Libya, people that they're turning to more and more away from the feel-bad, elimination, humiliation, voting out crappy television, and more into the feel-good television. Right. I think that's a good trend.
Cool. Caroline,
I think that will carry on for some while, I think.
Cool.
I think for me, if I should mention one format, and it's not a personal thing, but I think the one born every minute is an interesting case, because it's an example of something that is changing our industry. And it's an example of a content where you maybe some years ago would say, is that a format? What am I paying for? Yes, I'm paying for production know-how, but what about all the pillars that were so important to us just 3-4 years ago? But we see that these formats that are, you know, driven by the story, you put a bunch of cameras in a location that we can all relate to. Oh, sorry. That, you know, giving birth, having children is the biggest thing for all of us, you know. That works. Or you find a character and you spin around that character, and it's a character that either as a viewer provokes you and you say, thank God it's not me, or thank God it's not my children, or it's a character that is embracing you and say, fuck, I wish it was me. And you spin stories around that. Hollywood Wives is a very good example of that. So I think those formats are, if you ask me what has been most interesting or groundbreaking, that would be the ones I would pull forward.
I have
Nicola.
to say something different. So I go for the big game shows. I think if I would have invented the £1 million drop, I would be a very happy person. I think it's beautiful. I think it's very exciting. I think it's very, you know, it has it all as for a great entertainment show. Yeah. Or I also like Minute to Win It. I like this, you know, the involvement part, that it's out there and everybody at home, they start training. It becomes like a bigger thing than just a TV show that involves people and engages people. Okay. It's very nice.
Cool. Okay, well, I'm just going to stop to see if anybody has a question at the moment. So we'll keep it nice and social and interactive. Are there any microphones in the room? So the first question down here, gentleman with his hand up, please. Yeah, sorry, I probably caught you out then, didn't I? If you could tell us who you are before you ask your question, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Anand Gurnani from Animation Express India. And my question to the esteemed panelists is, could you throw some light on formats that have originated from the web and gone on to TV? Is that a trend that you're seeing emerge?
Do you have any examples?
I don't have an example. No, I can't speak about our own shows. But I think we will see it more and more. Actually, I think that there is a content awareness about what's going on the web and on the iPad and the iPhone. So I don't have an example from the top of my head, but I know that Renault TV have made an online dating show that is now moving into TV and the format business. So that's a good example of a brand and a platform where it all starts and then it comes to TV afterwards.
I think that there's a session tomorrow with Roke Lips at NED 3, and they have a project called TV Lab, and which gestates lots of formats. And I think this year, that a lot of the projects that are in that TV Lab, which is now an international sort of collaboration, you're going to see a lot of that. And I think he's going to talk quite a lot about that tomorrow around 3. There's a question at the back.
Lietuvos Rytas Television, Lithuania. I have a little bit broader question that was asked before. What could you say about different media types, integrated formats? I mean, TV and internet, TV and newspaper maybe, or TV and radio. And could you please mention a few integrated formats that you like or believe? Thank you.
That's another question about sort of transmedia sort of formats and the web and storytelling. Does anyone want to tackle this, Jan?
I'm not very, I don't have any examples or any good information on that. That's out of my reach. I don't know if my colleagues are cleverer than me on that.
I mean, I love, oh, sorry.
But what is interesting now, what we see is that all the newspapers, they are becoming, you know, like, and also trade magazines like C21 are becoming TV channels. It's more video there. all the time. So I mean, it's going to the barriers between TV and print is going to be.
Yeah, I think the key with all this is the connected television, isn't it? You know, that talking about these two different media as different platforms in a year or two is going to be a sort of a misnomer anyway, because it's sort of becoming the same thing. Endemol's got quite a few shows that it's developed with the web. Bebo had quite a lot of formats before it turned into something else. I
think a good example, a concrete example, which I love, is the Voice of Holland format, which is really using the cross-platform thing very smartly integrated in the program. So something is happening on screen and online at the same time. And as a viewer, you can have both platforms opened, and it's a very good example of how you can integrate other platforms into the TV simultaneously as broadcast.
And tomorrow afternoon as well, I think just getting a bit more into this, you really have to sort of ask the experts. There's a guy called Simon Brickell from Monte Rosa speaking tomorrow afternoon, and also Doug Scott from Ogilvy, and they'll be specifically talking about integration and cross-platform integration. So if that's what you're really interested in, don't miss it. Any other questions for the time being?
Eric.
Could you let us know who you are before you ask your question?
Yes, my name is Eric. I work for a Spanish company called Zebra, and I actually have the pleasure to work with Nicola in the Sparks group. But actually, even though we are members of the Sparks networks, one of the biggest thing that I realized year after year when I come to a new MIP is that the list of people I can meet is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking.
Yeah.
And in 2 years, I may not even bother to come because I can't go to, because if you are in a developed Western country like France or Spain or Italy or UK or Germany, you can't go and see ITV, you couldn't go and see Outright, which is Warner, you can't go and see Endemol, you can't go and see Fremantle, you can't go and see anyone. Fox Look doesn't even exist anymore. So it's like, why even bother? It's becoming a group of an oligarchy.
So this is a consolidation question.
Yeah. And since those big boys, which Banijay is also part of, are also trusting all the bigger time slots as a consequence, they're also trusting the big primetime shows. So actually, if you're an independent producer, you're only fighting for the leftovers.
Yeah.
And for once, and you can't even fathom to have the rights of any format, even if you had the money for. And then not only do these big boys already control the whole higher end formats market, it's not enough. They also have big checks and still keep buying everything else that they can find, whether to produce or just to drain the market.
So is your question, what do you do about it?
Yes. Is it, well, will there be maybe a MIP format in 2 years? Or will it just be...
okay, well, let's tackle that, question.
Will it just be a cocktail for 5 guys controlling the whole market?
Well, let's not hope. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's deal with it, because it's clearly one of the biggest issues. Nicola.
I'm a bit optimistic here. I think it will sort itself out by itself, because there is an imbalance in the market now. We have these big players, and they are very corporate, and I'm not sure that this is the best environment for creativity, actually. And I've heard complaints about it, both from broadcasters that say now, I used to meet this production company, we had this creative discussion, we're sitting the whole day discussing things, and now they just come with a catalog and put it on the table. So I think there's a need for a more, creative, smaller scale type of creativity. It's requested by the broadcaster, and I think it would happen by itself. All these people that were bought in these, buyouts, conglomerates, and they are locked in for 3 years or whatever it is, when that lock-in period is expiring, they want to do something else. I don't think they're very happy to stay in that. company that big.
No, it's,
Caroline,
it's true.
Maybe I can answer that for myself.
Yeah, you can answer that for yourself, please do. But you know, of course, there are people who are happy about that. But I mean that I think there, you know, you will see a new generation of smaller production companies building up again, maybe doing a lot of things for the web on a smaller scale and building it up again. So we'll have this vegetation of mid-sized, small and mid-sized companies again. In some countries, there are no mid-sized companies, or independent ones.
Caroline.
It's very rare I'm called a big boy, by the way. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how creativity is affected by the consolidation. I don't think, per definition, that the consolidation is harming the creativity. I think that, first of all, if you are a company and you are part of a big group, you have the ability, you have the financial backbone to actually invest in creativity, to invest in pilots. You have a backbone that will help you keep your rights when you're dealing with the broadcasters. That's one side of it. Another side is that I don't think when you bring to the table a bunch of different production companies from different cultures, different countries, run by different people, and you put them around a table, I believe that that can be sparking for creativity. Being a small player in the environment is tough. It's tough to get the time slots. It's tough to find the money to invest in your creativity. But I think that there will always be a room for the small players. The broadcasters, end of the day, are the clients. They're the ones that decide what gets on air. They want an environment where they can go to very different people and ask for products. You know, that's the way they can make us compete against one another and keep us on our toes. But I think as a small player, if you're good at focusing on what you're doing, what you're good at, and just, you know, be sharp on that, then I think you as a small player has a chance to battle out the big players on your competencies and also on your ability to earn money. But I think end of the day, it's all about people. You know, it's all about people. If you're big or you're small or whatever you do, it's all about people. If you have a great idea, you don't have the producer, it's worth nothing. Yeah. So I agree that the big groups, of course, they have to make sure that the people whose earnouts are falling out, that people still have a wish to stay. Big or small, we all need to attract the strong talents, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting, it's really interesting. We've got that problem, of course, as a trade magazine. As the groups consolidate, our advertising disappears. But what we see, cyclically, is that people consolidate, those people that don't like it leave, and they all start a bunch of new companies. Yeah. And you get a refreshing of it, and it does happen. We're still sort of here-ish. Also, I think it's interesting, we talked about Channel 4 earlier. Channel 4 has specifically said it wants to deal with independents. And it's putting out a call for pitches from the independent production community. Now, no disrespect to the bigger groups, they're going to find it more difficult in some instances to get in on a remit like that. And it's going to be an ebb and flow between, I think, a bit of that and a bit of the other. I'd just like to come back to the sort of conversation within the report a little bit, if I may, and talk about which genres do you think will be popular in the coming year. You've all got big development slates. You're looking for acquisitions of formats as well as sort of developing your own. What do you think is going to be the hot topic for 2011?
I think two things was going to be hot. I think still, as I mentioned before, you know, with the world around us, that always affects the format business. I think we have to see more formats that are relevant and comes closer to our hearts and souls. So I think we're going to see much more of that. And then your report also said that we will see less big talent, shiny floor formats, and I totally disagree with that. Because I think those formats are getting bigger and bigger, and they will stay on for a while. They will continue to grow, have double their budget or triple their budgets, because as I see it, those shows are more or less the only ones that can bring the entire family together for some good old cozy together watching. And then you can have your teenage daughter to be on a blog while watching X Factor and share things on a Facebook or anything, you know. And that is always going to be, I don't think that is going to disappear. It's going to stay on. Of course, we all need to refresh and find new twists and ways to do things and be intelligent about it. But I think that is one thing. And then I think that our very intelligent viewers, they are becoming gradually even more and more intelligent. So they know what a format is. They can predict how a show is going to end by just watching the start. Oh, it's one of those, and then you have a house makeover, so I'll just zap away and then I come back for the tears and the crying and the big surprise in the end. So we need to, again, be innovative and find freshness and new twists and turns to
I think this comes back to your point at the start, Karoline, isn't it? Like, format in itself is something that people think they understand, and maybe the whole genre needs reinventing.
Yeah, well, one last thing that, like Karoline has been mentioning a couple of times, is that I totally agree with, is that we will see a de-evaluation of formats as the old-fashioned way. So you're no longer paying for format pillars and for hotshot production Bibles. You're paying for good programming, whatever that is. If it's UpDocs or The Family or anything, you know, anything like that, you're paying for good programming, good ideas, and to have the right for that in a period of time to pitch that to a local broadcaster. You're paying for good programming, not a format anymore. So that buyers that sit, you know, and say, the old-fashioned buyers, I would say, sit and say to me, in the coming days at MIPTV, say, is this really a format? What am I paying for here? I say, you're paying for a fucking good idea, and you're paying for a good track record that you can refer to. So that is the big thing in the changing, to summarize what Nicola and Karoline already said.
Okay, cool. Karoline, do you agree? What's your focus going to be in terms of the next big thing over the coming 12 months?
I mean, obviously, for us, working with the companies owned by the group, but also external companies where we do creative partnership or funding of pilots, key for us is, of course, to find you know, something new and groundbreaking, a format that can define a slot or define a channel, a format that takes a new direction, something we've not seen before. I know it's a cliche, but it's really because that's what these programs can do. They can define, they can change the brand of a channel, you know. Do
you know what area you'd be looking for that in? I mean, you know, some people say it's not cooking anymore. Is it racing car driving? I mean, I think having as a distributor or as a group, having a very divided or broad catalog is key. If you want to attract key buyers, you have to be able to present new formats within many different genres. Of course, we all want the next big family entertainment formats, but I also want smaller creative formats that can go in many different time slots on many different channels. That's as interesting also financially. But I think if I can just be a naughty pupil and come back to the consolidation question, I think that, but related to this, I think that what we will, so the discussion is harming the creativity or not harming the creativity, but what is a fact is that it will change the way we deal. It will change this market. It's absolutely true that it's very few options you can buy anymore as an independent because everything is tied in. So what is interesting is it will change the way we'll deal with one another. The business model is changing. If you're small or you're big. So that's also related to what you're looking for your catalog.
I think it needs to harm creativity in some way or other, even though we see emerging small pop-ups like you do in the UK and we do it in the Nordic region when their lock-up period is, you know, it needs to harm creativity. And what we are totally scared of in the Nordic region is seeing that in 5 years' time we will see 5, 6 super indies only, and only all of and you'll see an outburst of very, very small companies struggling to survive per series, you know, per quarterly series, struggling just to stay floating. And that is going to harm creativity at all, because you can, even though you have the funding and you have the muscles and the power, you don't always have the focus and the will to invest in independent rights. You will invest in your own rights, the rights that you own 100% of yourself, because that's good business.
And it's interesting, just before we come to you, Nicola, it's interesting, isn't it, how you all run your bigger groups. You know, some groups run a very sort of coherent internal development process that includes everybody. Other groups, like All3Media, have a very sort of federal approach where they run independent companies that don't really talk to each other. And Steve Morrison is the closing keynote on Sunday, and I think All3 is a very different model to, for instance, one of the companies that you operate. Nicola, you were going to talk a little bit about what you see as the trends.
Well, we can see what the demands is. I mean, all the channels they want, as Karoline said, the channel-defining shows. So the big entertainment shows that they can base their grid on. You know, they need the big shows, 3 or 4 of them, and that is what everybody's looking for. And so that is absolutely key thing to develop. Then more or less the money is gone. You know. They spend a lot of money on those shows, and then they need, you know, this everyday kind of programming, and then that's all, when all these factual shows really work really well. They're cheap to produce, relatively cheap to produce, and the audience like them. So I think we see a lot of that output. Okay. And as you know, because as Jan said, it's very close to people, it's close to their, you know, everyday life, it's all those things. So I think that's great programming, basically. And also one more thing which you haven't mentioned, you mentioned before, it's a return of scripted formats and scripted shows. Now that there's more money, I can definitely see that there's a bigger demand for scripted shows, which is a high-risk game, but also the return of investment can also be very, very, very big high. So.
Good. Well, look, it's been fascinating starting the conversation with this chat. Thanks all for your views and your visions. This is sort of where it starts. The whole point about MIPFormats is to bring people together to meet and to discuss what the future may hold. Have a great day. Don't miss the closing keynote interview today with Dick de Rijk, and then some drinking from 6:30 onwards. So I'd just like to thank the panel, and thanks to you all for being with us at the start of MIPFormats. Thanks very much.
Welcome.